Thank you, Chairman. Here we are, $107 billion of the $3.5 trillion. And when you drill down into it, there's $2.5 billion for the so-called community violence intervention initiatives. And I'm concerned that these so-called intervention initiatives are going to include funding for extreme risk protection orders, which are also called red flags. Last year, our committee considered a bill that would deprive law-abiding Americans of their due process rights while taking away their Second Amendment rights. It would have paid states or tribes to enact a law that allowed anyone to petition a court to apply for an extreme risk protection order to be issued to take away an individual's firearms. The federal government should not be in the business of bribing states to adopt unconstitutional laws. Yet I'm afraid that's what this legislation today, the spending bill, is going to do. In fact, 17 states have already adopted some form of red flag laws, and there's no evidence that these laws have reduced the frequency of shootings. In fact, these laws authorize unannounced gun confiscations that are hazardous to both citizens and law enforcement officers. For instance, a man in Maryland was shot in the confusion that ensued when his house was raided in the dark. And it's because of dangers like this that you have some sheriffs who are already saying they will not enforce these red flag laws because they present a danger to their deputies. The criteria for red flagging a person in the various states are already vague, and it's vague in the federal statute that's been proposed. In some of the states, the people that can request a red flag are police officers, family members, romantic partners, and cohabitants. But anybody can call a police officer and refer it. So basically anybody can ask for a red flag on somebody. The system is ripe for abuse. Every state in the union already has a law that allows individuals to be involuntarily confined to a medical facility briefly on the basis of a mental health professional's opinion that they are a danger to themselves or others. Whereas these laws, these red flag laws, whereas those laws treat individuals in need, the red flag laws only irritate individuals by taking some of their firearms and leaving them without mental health help. Furthermore, red flag laws don't require expert testimony of a medical health professional. Despite the sacrifices, the evidence shows no benefits from red flag laws, the sacrifices of their constitutional rights. Looking at the data from 1970 through 2017, these laws had no significant effect on murder, suicide, mass public shooting, fatalities, robbery, aggravated assault, or burglary. These laws do not save lives. In fact, they endanger lives in another way. If somebody knows that they seek mental health help because they might be a danger, or they feel they might be a danger to themselves or somebody else, if they know if they seek that help, then that could get them flagged, and then they would lose their constitutional rights. They may not go seek that help. And so they're dangerous. These red flag laws are dangerous for that reason. We've already got a situation at the VA where veterans are banned from owning or possessing firearms or even ammunition if they merely admit that somebody else administers their finances. This is not due process. This is not constitutional. And that's why we need this amendment to ensure that those rights are not abridged without due process. Getting back to the legislation that was passed in this committee, the issuance of an ex parte extreme risk protection order would permit law enforcement to seize firearms without the respondent being afforded the right to a briefing. In fact, the firearms can be held by law enforcement for up to a month before the respondent has a chance on a hearing, and they're going to have to hire a lawyer at that point. The level of that's required is reasonable cause to believe that the respondent poses a danger of causing harm to himself or others in the near future by having access to a firearm. That's a very low standard, and it would deprive individuals of their Second Amendment right. And when the petitioner is finally granted his day in court, the government only needs to prove by preponderance of the evidence that the respondent proposes a danger. Again, this is a very low standard to deprive individuals of their Second Amendment right. And we're assuming they're guilty until they can prove themselves innocent. Bear in mind, the average person is going to have to retain legal counsel, expensive legal counsel. These are not criminals. They're not illegal aliens. They're not fugitives. These are law-abiding citizens who are not prohibited by law from purchasing a firearm or possessing them, and they should not lose their Second Amendment right without due process and with such a low evidentiary standard, and I urge adoption of this amendment.